Hi guys! Today I'm going to be telling you the story of getting my PICCline. So in the video that I was just filming about my hospital go bag, I was explaining to you Terry's PICCline, which this is Terry. If you want to learn a little bit more about Terry, go check out my other video. So this is my experience with getting my PICCline. So first of all, I'm just going to start off with, I have my PICCline for something called postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. That's the main reason why I have my PICCline. I have my PICCline to get regular IV fluids at least twice a week, and also I tend to have some issues with potassium and stuff like that, so I occasionally need infusions of those, and I have very, very bad veins. So trying to do regular IV fluids with bad veins and peripheral IVs just didn't work out for very long. It got to the point where I was being poked 7 times and not getting a vein or an IV, and so I really needed the fluids and we just needed a more permanent option, so we decided on a PICCline. So I have my PICCline in my left arm. I have had it for almost 5 months now, which is crazy. At this point, I'm so used to it that it kind of just feels normal. Like, it's weird to think about not having a PICCline and not having to flush it twice a day and, like, not having that access. Like, it's weird to me. I never want to go back to peripheral IVs. I prefer my PICCline way more. Yeah, so now onto the story of actually getting the PICCline. So we were told that it was going to be a fairly simple procedure. I was going to be awake. I was offered medicine to help me calm down and just to relax, but I was going to be awake for the procedure. This was done at Children's Hospital. Children's Hospital is one of the best places. All of their staff is so kind, and so I love Children's. We'll just leave it at that. We were told it was going to be a fairly simple procedure, 45 minutes, like in interventional radiology, and it was going to be fine. It was going to be easy. They place these every day. So we get there the morning of the placement, and we check in. We don't even have to wait very long, and then they take me back to this room. Here they asked a bunch of questions, and I didn't even have to change into a gown. Like, I was wearing pajamas, as I always wear to the hospital pretty much. I was in a t-shirt and pajama pants, and I got to actually stay in that for the whole time, so that was nice. They just asked some questions, asked if I wanted, like, medicine to help me calm down. I said, no, I'm good. Like, they were going to use local anesthetic, so I said, no, I'm good, not right now. So after a little bit, they take me back, and it basically looked like an x-ray table with like an x-ray machine over you, but it looked a little bit different, but it was pretty much an x-ray table. But there was like a pillow, and like it was a little more cushiony. So they laid me down on that, and they originally said they were going to place it in my right arm because it's easiest to place in your right arm, apparently. Like, the distance that it has to go to be in the right place is shorter. Like, it has to go a longer distance if it's in your left arm. So they were going to try to place it in my right arm, which I was like, okay. Like, I was hoping for my left just because I'm right-handed, and I used my forearm crutch on my right arm, so I was like, eh. But, I was fine. Like, I was fine. So they lay me down and they stick my arm out on this like board, like this plastic board, and they start to like ultrasound my arm. And I think they were just trying to find a vein, like to try to see which vein was going to be the best. So eventually they're like, okay, I think we found one that we're going to try. And it didn't take very long, just a few minutes. So they covered me in like a big blue sheet, and draped my arm, and there was just this like circle, and the rest was like stuck to my arm, so it was like it was like dressed and ready to go. Then they cleaned off my arm, and then they were gonna give me the local anesthetic. So she warned me, like, it kind of burns a little bit, but after 3 seconds it'll be gone. So I was like, okay. And they gave me the local anesthetic. It was fine. Like, it kind of just felt like a shot, or like maybe like a little bit of a bee sting, but it literally lasted for like 2 seconds, and then it was fine. So after that was done, they were going to start like the actual putting in the PICCline. And one thing is that people with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome tend, well, I don't want to say tend not to, but some of us do not respond well to local anesthetic. We metabolize it too quickly. So someone will give us lidocaine, like a shot of lidocaine, if they're going to get stitches. And what would typically make a regular person be completely numb, can't even feel it, it either wouldn't work for us and we could still feel it, or we would need much more and it would wear off faster. So they started to place the PICCline and I could feel everything. And I mean, it was uncomfortable, but I think the majority of what made it so uncomfortable was how nervous I was. So I started to cry, and the nurse who was with me was like trying to comfort me. She was wiping off my cheeks, and my dad was at my feet and he was just rubbing my feet. Like, not everyone gets to have someone in the room with them, but I was so grateful that my dad was able to be there with me. He definitely helped keep me more calm. But I kind of just started to cry a little bit, like not sobbing, but just like tears were running down my face. So at that point, they'd been trying and they just weren't able to get the vein to cooperate. And this had been maybe 20 minutes. And so at this point, I was like, is it possible to change my mind? Like, can I get the nitrous oxide? Because I was so stressed out. And they were like, of course. So they set it up like it's like a mask on you. And so the nurse is holding that. And then they were able to start trying to find a vein again. And after that, like, I couldn't feel anything. Like, I could feel what was happening, but it didn't hurt and I didn't care. And eventually I kind of think I like fell asleep because I could hear them talking for a while. But then I just kind of remember like nothing. Like, it was kind of just black and I don't really remember anything. But then I remember like suddenly being like able to hear people again, and for me, it was like 5 minutes, but in actuality it had been 3.5 hours. So yeah, it did not go as planned. And I could hear them saying like, we need to call up to the OR, and then I was like, wait, you gotta pay attention, like, what is happening? It turns out they just needed, once I like started paying attention, they just needed more equipment. When they finally got it into a vein, they were threading it up and it was getting caught up by my neck and it didn't want to advance, and you don't really want to force it. So they were trying different wires and they had several different radiologists come in, and they just weren't able to get it. So they said, like, we could leave it in, we could leave it exactly how it is, it just won't last very long. They said I could probably get 3 weeks out of it and then maybe try to place a different one, or like reevaluate with some other option. But we were just like, we just went through all of this and we didn't want it to be kind of a waste, because while yes, we could leave it, it wouldn't last very long. Like they said, probably 3 weeks, maybe less. So we're like, well, what if you try the other arm? So they're like, well, I mean, sure. So we had them dress my PICCline so that it was ready to go, and then our plan was they were gonna try this arm. If it didn't work, then we had this one as a backup plan. But if it did work, then we could take this one out and I would have a fully functioning, like a correctly placed PICCline. So then they got my left arm all dressed and ready, ultrasound, and I'm not even kidding. Within 10 seconds of starting to ultrasound my arm, she's like, look at this vein. And the nurse looked at it, she's like, that's a really good vein. And so this time, they thought maybe part of the problem originally was when they give you lidocaine, sometimes it can cause your vein to like shrink up. And so they were like, we're going to give you the nitrous oxide, but we're going to hold off on the lidocaine until after we're like into the vein. And I was like, okay. So they gave me nitrous oxide, which is actually a pain reliever in itself. So I didn't really feel it. Like I could feel it, but it didn't really hurt. It's hard to explain. And from the time that they like poked the first needle into my arm, within 10, maybe 15 minutes, I was sitting up and the procedure was done. Like it was so fast. Like I wish we would have just started on that arm, but it all worked out in the end. So we were able to take out the PICCline that was not quite placed correctly, and they washed it up for me and let me keep it so I could put it in Terry. Because originally I asked, like, I know that I'm not 5, but can I have a PICCline to put in my bear? And they originally said no, because they can't like use supplies like that. But since this one had to be pulled anyways, I got to keep it. So yeah, the PICCline that is in Terry was actually in me for a while. It was only like dressed and like actually like functional for like 10 minutes. But they were trying to get it in me for like 3.5 hours. But yeah, so the whole thing took over 3 hours and it was kind of a big ordeal. But as soon as it was done, I was fine. Like I got up, walked, went home, like it was fine. And then I mean there was a little bit of an adjustment period, like it was a little uncomfortable for a while in your arm, but ultimately it was pretty easy of a recovery. Yeah, so I went home and I was able to start using it immediately. I went home and got an infusion that day. So it didn't go, I mean things didn't go quite as planned, but they worked out in the end, and it actually ended up being not as bad as I thought. I was very worried going into it, and even though like it didn't go as planned, I thought it was gonna be really painful, and it really wasn't. Like my suggestion is just, if they offer you meds, take them. Like I hate the way that they make me feel, but it just makes things easier for me. So yeah, that would be my advice. Like just take meds if they give it to you. Obviously if you're like allergic, don't, but they made it easy, and yeah. So I'm completely adjusted to it now. It took maybe a week, 2 weeks tops to be like back to pretty much normal. And I've had this PICCline for 5 months now, and I have not really had an issue. So I'm pretty grateful, because I know that there are some risks that goes with PICClines, but yeah, I'm very grateful to have had Patrick, which is my PICCline's name. I'm very thankful to have had Patrick for 5 months now, and he has made my quality of life much better. So yeah, that is the story of getting my PICCline placed. I hope that this was helpful, and this was not meant to scare anyone. If anything, I hope that it like set your mind at ease, that if you're going to be getting a PICCline, it is not bad. I was so worried. When I say it's not bad, I guess my story kind of sounded a bit scary. It really is not that big of a deal. If you're going to be getting a PICCline placed, like I will love to ask questions if you want to comment them. But it's not that bad, I promise, and you will do great. So yeah, but I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!